All right. Danny Bauer here, Chief Ruckus Maker over at Better Leaders, Better Schools. And what I want to chat about today has to do with hiring, how to hire better in terms of schools. I see from all over social within the mastermind when I'm supporting school leaders one on one, hiring teachers right before the beginning of the school year is actually quite a challenge. So, what I'm going to share today, three stories about signaling and then five tips, five things that you can do to make hiring a bit easier for you. So that is what we're talking about, how to solve your teacher hiring woes and problems. Okay. So the three stories, this all has to do with signaling. Signaling is an important thing to put out in the world, right? We respond to signals. The signal goes out, people come in, right? And signaling can be anything from how a book is packaged in the pattern that you expect to see to a signal like raising your eyebrows or winking at somebody out in the street. So they're all signals. I read a story from a really great book called Alchemy recently, and I want to relay that story to you right now. It had to do with a coffee shop, right? Now, this takes place in the UK, but it could be in the US, it could be in Australia, it could be in China, it could be anywhere, right? But the point is, this author talks about a cafe. It's on a busy street, and if you're paying attention to driving, you would never notice that a cafe was there, right? So, not unexpectedly, the first place that set up shop created a cafe business serving coffee and donuts and all that kind of stuff. It went out of business. Well, a new owner comes in, buys the property, thinks, of course, that their brand, their restaurant is going to be a smash success as well. And same thing, goes out of business. Well, a third person has the same idea, wants to have a cafe, and this one succeeds. So, what was different? What was different about this place? The signage, all the same. The painting, the way the restaurant looked, the cafe, all the same. The only change that this cafe made was they removed the heavier, permanent, always outside seats. Okay. So, think like uh, iron seats or wood, I don't know. But they replaced them with seats that were temporary, cheaper actually, but subconsciously, it told people that drove by that they were put out every morning when the cafe opened and put back inside at night. We all know that restaurants do this, right? So we've seen this happen before. Um, and anyways, sometimes they tie ropes around them and that kind of thing. That's a signal that the place is closed, right? Or they put them inside. So on a very subconscious level, it's not even an open sign, right? It's just the fact that the furniture's outside, and they also put a little barrier too that was temporary that they would put up and take down when it had to come with just having the cafe open. So that is fascinating to me because it's such a small thing, but on a very, very deep subconscious level, when people put out temporary furniture that the place is open for business, and this one was a success. People stopped by and it continued to work. So that's great. That's the first story. Second story has to do with flowers, right? Flowers and bees in terms of pollinating and that kind of thing. And what the author says of this book, Alchemy, I love it. Flowers are just weeds with an advertising and branding budget. Now, that to me is super funny. So, the flowers, there they are. Beautiful colors, right? Wonderful aroma that attracts the bees because of their advertising and branding budget. And they're signaling a promise, right? If you land here, you're going to get the sweet nectar and be able to pollinate and bring it to the next flower, next flower, next flower, and so on. And that's why, right, those things exist. So, in terms of signaling, what I want you to think about is how to be like the temporary furniture, or what's that signal like the flower, and the teachers in this case are the bees. What can you put out there, right? Okay, last story in terms of signaling and hiring too. When I think about my last three jobs before I became chief ruckus maker of Better Leaders, Better Schools, the last three jobs, all of them I got because of word of mouth. So the last one, as a principal in Texas, I knew somebody who moved down to that area and was actually working within the district. And he told me, hey, this is a great opportunity. You should apply, check it out. I did, got the job. Prior to that, I was an assistant principal, right? Now, how did I get that job? Same thing, word of mouth, actually the same friend too, DeAndre. So I'm very honored that he helped me in that part of my career. Anyways, we were working out one day, and he said, hey, I got my first principal position, and essentially I need people I could trust on the leadership team. So there you have it, right? And he said, I need you. So I went and got my leadership certification, and that's how I ended up at Brooks. Last story, when I was at Kenwood. Before Kenwood, I was working as an avid coach for Chicago Public Schools, serving like 30 something schools. It was crazy. I was all over the place. Anyways, I really, really wanted to be back in the classroom. And I honestly, when I moved from Champaign to Chicago, I could not get a job. I didn't have the connections. I didn't have the network at that time. And I applied easily for at least 100 jobs, didn't get any. Landed at the Avid office, division within CPS, served these other schools, built relationships for about a year and a half. And one of those schools that I sometimes served was Kenwood. And I really, hit it off with the assistant principal there, David, who might check out this video, and Jenny, who at the time was the Avid coordinator. Applied there, interview went well, got the position. So that now we're going to get to the 5 tips, right? 5 tips in terms of hiring better. So tip number 1, create a better school. If you think about my career trajectory and the last 3 jobs before Better Leaders, Better Schools, it was all word of mouth, right? And the places I was going to, they had really great reputations, right? So if you create a better school, your staff will tell more people, right? Tell their colleagues. All teachers know other teachers. So if you're having trouble hiring, people aren't inviting people to that school. That's a signal to you. There's a reason that's not happening, right? So if you create a better culture, create a better school, then your staff is going to spread the word about the amazing stuff you're doing. You'll attract more talent. You won't have problems hiring. So that's tip number 1, just create a better experience. With that said, if you go to betterleadersbetterschools.com/culture-boot-camp, culture boot camp, I'm running a 5-day free challenge that's about building a better culture. So you could join completely free. The content will be delivered via email. There'll be a online community to show your work and share ideas, swap ideas, and that kind of thing. So anyways, just a little plug for that. So that's number 1, create a better school. Number 2, what are your cafe seats, right? So what's a signal? Obviously, you're not going to put out temporary furniture in front of your school to signal that you're open, right? But think about what you do want to signal. So in preparation for this video, I just pulled up the first English teacher position I could find. And I'm not going to read it to you. This is an exercise that you might do. Go read your teacher positions that get posted and look at any other schools. And what I guarantee you're going to find is that it's super boring and it's just like everybody else. So why would top talent or teachers, unless they need a job, why would they apply to your school? They're not going to. That's the point, right? So I'm looking at this job posting, 10-month position, certifications required, blah, blah, blah. Then it talks about the school district and what it is and how many employees and blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm so bored. From pre-kindergarten through high school, and now we're getting into the buzzwords. Yes, rigor. Ooh, 21st century knowledge. Yeah, that's what I want from my kids. So innovation. Now that's a place you want to work. Check out what they're doing over there. So, I mean, it sucks. There's nothing in this job posting that's going to make me want to apply. So, what if you did this? What if in your job posting, instead of talking about your school, you talked about an ideal, right? An ideal candidate, number one. And then number two, you talked about how you're going to serve them, not what you need from them in terms of the position. But here's something that I don't see in job descriptions. School X, we develop our teachers in this way. Well, that'd be interesting. Huh. I'm a teacher and there's all these schools out there. And this place is telling me how I'm going to be developed and get to the next level that I want in a career. I might apply to that school. So there you go. What would your cafe seats look like to you? I gave you a top tip in terms of job descriptions that you can use. Number three, perks. So what are some perks you can offer, right? If nothing else in terms of, the pandemic and that kind of thing, it showed that, whoa, school could be done in multiple different ways, right? So I know that it was difficult. Obviously, it was difficult, but the flexibility within the school day, within working from home and these kind of things, you might consider how can you keep that, right? How can you keep that? And what can you do to just make more perks within your school setting? Maybe it has to do with childcare, right? There's a lot of working parents. And if you had just a small section to take care of parents' kids while at work, that might attract some applicants as well. So that's just a few ideas for perks. You can think about that the rest of the way. Number 4 out of 5, what you don't do. So we talked about what your cafe seats look like and teacher development, perks. Here's what you don't do. So what if you listed in the job description, here's all the dumb stuff that schools do that we're not going to do. For example, you're a professional. You've been trained. Maybe you have years of experience, right? And so you know what you're doing. We don't require lesson plans at our school. It's just not going to happen. You need to have a lesson plan so that you're organized and prepared and ready, right? But you don't have to turn it into me. That's called micromanagement, right? When I was a principal, I didn't turn in my plan for the week to my supervisor. Like, it just doesn't make sense. And so that micromanagement, that could be demeaning. So list the things you won't do that can attract the right kind of people to your school. Nobody else is doing that, I guarantee it. And this is one way to set yourself apart from everybody else. So what you don't do, maybe no lesson plans. Maybe you use a better teacher evaluation system. I was trained in the Danielson model. It was an upgrade from just a checklist, yes or no, but it's the other side of the pendulum. It is way too expansive. There's just too much going on there. It takes school leaders too long to fill out. And honestly, teachers don't find that feedback meaningful. What they find meaningful is, did you pay attention to the lesson? What did you see that I did well? Where do you see that I can improve? And then a candid conversation around that to help somebody level up their skills. 2 quick resources that I'll suggest here. Radical Candor. We read that in the mastermind this past year, and thanks for the feedback. If you dig into those 2 books, you'll level up your teacher evaluation and feedback overnight, and it's way better than any silly rubric out there. One more resource, not that you are building a business, but I read a book called Scaling Up, and that has really helped me internally think about who we are, our brand promises, and yada, yada, yada. It's a really awesome book. The thing that a school might steal from the book was what they call a job scorecard, which was so freaking simple. Like, what if a teacher evaluation system looked like this? And in terms of a job scorecard, what you'd put is the position, the name, the mission, right? So what is the mission of the teacher within that classroom? Clearly identify that. Then you have your accountabilities. So if you will envision with me 4 columns. The first column are those functions or accountabilities of the teacher. The second column is the metric. So what does success look like? Then rating, and it doesn't have to be 1 through 4. Very simple: green, yellow, red, right? So great, average, needs improvement. And then comments on what you saw and how to improve. So that's a job scorecard. Okay, and that kind of wraps up what you won't do. And this is now the last part. So I don't see schools doing this at all, like ever. Now, sometimes they do on social, like snap a pic. Here's some cool stuff happening in the classroom. That's great. Keep doing it. Okay. But what I want to challenge you to do, you will attract more teachers to your school if you use case studies. And I'm not going to go and do a major teaching on case studies right now. You can Google that. Maybe I'll do a live video on that at some point. But here's what to know. Have case studies of your students, parents, and of course your teachers, right? And the case studies should show their growth. It should show challenges. Google the hero's journey too. If you're into like writing and storytelling, you probably have come across that. But the point is, have pictures of your staff on your website, post these things on social media, put them out in your newsletters to the community, and tell a story of how a educator has grown within your community. And if you do that, what happens is that people see themselves within the case study. So if you have a teacher that is a single mom, let's say, with 2 kids, like tell her story and how she makes it work to be a great teacher. If you have a first year teacher, right, coming through the pandemic, this is their first year, what a fascinating case study to tell to attract more new teachers. Because within that case study, it'll probably come out like, how did you support this person? How did they grow, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe it's a veteran teacher. Okay, they've been there, let's say 20 years. Tell his or her story about why they continue to stick around. There's a story there. And now somebody who has a little more experience might say, wow, this is a really great culture, a place where I would love to serve. Okay, you can do this cut that through like any type of teacher you want to attract to your building, whether that has to do with race or age, even sexual orientation. Like you can think about that in a million ways. So anyways, that's number 5, case studies. So hope you like this video today on how to solve your teacher hiring problems. Told a couple stories about those plastic seats, right, that are easily movable but signal that the cafe is open. We talked about flowers. We talked about how I got all these jobs because of word of mouth and relationships. And then I shared 5 ways you could attract better talent. So create a better school. What are your metaphorical cafe seats? The perks, what you don't do, and then case studies. So this is Danny Bauer over at Better Leaders, Better Schools. My role is Chief Ruckus Maker. I'm an unorthodox leadership coach helping school leaders for sure level up. And if you want to do that free culture bootcamp challenge, just go to betterleadersbetterschools.com/culture-boot-camp. Totally free to join. 5 days. It's going to be super fun. And can't wait to see you there. All right. Bye for now and go make a ruckus.